Iran just told Trump to his face that they will not surrender. Trump called it proof that they did. One of them is dangerously wrong, and the world is about to find out which one. Here is what actually happened. The Trump administration launched a massive military strike on Iran. The goal was simple and brutal: kill the top leadership, break the chain of command, and watch the government collapse from the inside. Trump went on camera and told the world Iran had been decimated, that Iran had surrendered, that America had won. But here is the part that did not make the headline. Iran's president, foreign minister, and national security chief all went on camera the same day and said in plain language, "We reject even the thought of surrender. We are not done, and if you keep coming, we are ready for whatever comes next." Trump's response to that: he said, "See, they surrendered. That is not spin. That is not politics. That is not a miscommunication between translators. That is a man hearing no and telling the entire world he heard yes. And that gap between what is real and what Washington is saying is real is exactly where wars stop being conflicts and start being catastrophes. Two completely different realities are being sold to two completely different audiences right now. And somewhere between those two stories, oil is burning, children are dead, and the waterway that moves a fifth of the world's energy supply has gone quiet. If this is the first time you are seeing these two statements placed side by side, that tells you everything you need to know about how this story is being covered. Hit subscribe. This channel does not wait for permission to show you what is actually happening. Forget the press conferences. Forget the victory speeches. Here are 3 things that happened on the ground, and what each one tells you about where this crisis actually is. First, Iran went diplomatic while Washington went louder. Right after the strikes, Iran's president sent a direct message, not to the United States, but to every country sitting in the Middle East. The message was precise and calculated. Stop letting the US use your land and your air bases to hit us, and we will stop hitting you. We have no desire to turn this into a regional war. They specifically named Turkey and Azerbaijan by name. They offered something close to a formal apology for strikes that touched their territory. And then, in the same breath, they made the boundary clear. Any nation still actively hosting American operations stays in their crosshairs until that changes. Think about what that move actually is. That is Iran in the middle of a war, conducting targeted diplomacy, separating the US from its regional partners, trying to pull the ground out from under Washington's air campaign, one ally at a time. That is not what a broken country does. That is not what a leadership structure in chaos does. That is what a country that is still thinking clearly, still moving deliberately, and still building its position does. And then Washington's response made it worse. Iran's foreign minister came out and said the president's openness to pulling back was almost immediately destroyed by Trump's decision to publicly misread it as weakness. He said, and this is a direct line worth hearing, "If Mr. Trump is looking for escalation, that is precisely what our armed forces have long been prepared for." Washington was not listening, and in a crisis, that kind of silence has a cost. Second, Washington responded by bombing water, oil, and schools. After that diplomatic outreach, the US and Israel did not slow down. They escalated hard and fast. Major Iranian oil refineries, the ones responsible for supplying more than half of Iran's domestic energy, were hit. Cameras captured the Shahan oil depot turning into a wall of fire that swallowed the sky. The burning oil moved through drainage lines, hit the city's sewage system, and created something that looked impossible: a river of fire running through the streets of a living city. Then a desalination plant on Keshem Island was struck. 30 villages lost access to clean water overnight. And then the one that Congress got briefed on, and the administration has not answered for. An elementary school in Mashhad was hit. Approximately 150 children were killed. Satellite imagery confirmed the location. Intelligence briefings confirmed the strike. The White House has not addressed it in any meaningful way. Iran's foreign minister called it a blatant and desperate crime, and warned that the US had just set a precedent with consequences that would not be contained. Here is the part that Washington's planners apparently did not think through. When you bomb a nation's oil supply, you cause economic damage. When you bomb a nation's water supply, you cause suffering. But when you bomb a school and kill 150 children, and then say nothing, you do not break a population's will to resist. You harden it into something that does not bend. Every image coming out of Iran right now is producing the exact opposite effect of what the operation was designed to achieve. Iranians who spent years protesting against their own government, who wanted reform, who were building something different, they are now standing behind that same government, against the country that turned their cities into fire and took their children. The strikes did not divide Iran, they fused it together. Ali Larijani, Iran's national security chief, went on camera and said it plainly. More than 1,000 civilians are dead. He said, "We will not let this go unpunished. We will retaliate in kind." That is not a press release written for foreign audiences. That is a message written for domestic ones. And domestic messages like that, in countries that have just buried 1,000 civilians, tend to become policy. Third, the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. 20% of the world's crude oil moves through a single narrow waterway called the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, that waterway is not functioning. Tankers are sitting still. Insurance companies have pulled coverage for any vessel attempting the passage. Kuwait has shut down production. Qatar has shut down production. The ports that feed the global energy supply are holding their breath. Iran's Air Defense Command issued a statement that deserves to be read slowly, in full, by every naval planner in the Pentagon. They said they welcome the United States trying to escort oil tankers through the strait. They said entry may be on the surface, but the end will be at the bottom of the Persian Sea. Trump's answer was to offer US warships as escorts for stranded tankers. The shipping companies looked at that offer and said no. "We are not moving," they said. "You can line up 10 warships. You can offer us full insurance coverage. We are not transiting that strait." The choke point that analysts spent decades marking on worst-case scenario maps is no longer a scenario. It is happening right now, in real time, and it is sitting inside your gas price, your grocery bill, and every supply chain that runs on fuel. This is not a foreign policy story that lives in a briefing room somewhere. It is inside your daily life right now, whether you have been following it or not. If you drive, fuel prices are already moving up, and the strait closure has not fully hit the market yet. The full impact is still incoming. Crude is surging. Analysts who track these numbers for a living are not using calm language right now. If you watch regional stability, Iraq's parliament held death to America chants on the floor this week, not outside, on the floor. Qatar's leader told Trump directly that the escalation will carry serious consequences for international security. Dubai and Doha, cities that spent years building themselves into safe places for global money and global business, are watching that reputation develop cracks as Iranian strikes land near both. And here is the structural damage that does not reverse easily. Every Gulf state that placed its security future in Washington's hands just learned what every Trump business partner eventually learns. He takes what he needs from the relationship, and he leaves you holding whatever breaks. Once those countries start building new security arrangements with new partners, and they are already starting, they do not tear those arrangements down just because the temperature drops. The trust moves to the new routes. It does not come back to the old ones. Meanwhile, Trump moved to offset rising oil prices by lifting sanctions on Russian oil and letting Moscow flood the market. Prices have not come down, but that Russian oil revenue is going somewhere, directly into the war machine being used against Ukraine, the same Ukraine that the United States is now asking to help shoot down Iranian drones and ballistic missiles flying at American assets. The contradictions are not subtle, they are not even hidden. Best case, managed pullback. Back-channel conversations produce a quiet ceasefire. Iran stops striking Gulf neighbors. The US scales back strikes on civilian infrastructure without announcing it. Qatar or Turkey brokers a framework both sides can live with publicly. The shooting slows, but even here the structural damage is already done. The strait showed its vulnerability to the entire world. Gulf states have drawn a lesson about American reliability that will not be undrawn. Supply chains are already shifting around the old routes. Middle case, the map changes. Countries across the Middle East and the broader global South begin quietly building security and economic arrangements that do not run through Washington. Iran's diplomatic outreach finds ground. American base access gets quietly restricted. A new regional structure forms, one where the US still carries weight, but no longer holds the center of gravity. That kind of shift, once it sets into place, tends to be permanent. Worst case, no one stops it. Iran makes good on Larijani's promise and retaliates directly for the killing of its supreme leader and the deaths of over 1,000 civilians. The US responds with greater force. The strait moves from restricted to fully militarized. Oil reaches prices that trigger a global recession. The conflicts in Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria, all held together by pressure, blow open at once. And a war that was sold as fast, decisive, and clean becomes exactly what 18 US intelligence agencies said it would become before the first missile left its launcher: a war with no clean exit. 3 governments are lying right now: Washington, Tehran, Tel Aviv, all of them managing their populations, all of them calling the same wreckage a different kind of victory. America once had the standing to walk into a moment like this and be taken seriously as a stabilizing force. That standing is not just damaged in this region, it is gone, possibly for a generation. So here is the question I want you to sit with. Trump says he decimated Iran. Iran says it will retaliate in kind for a dead supreme leader and over 1,000 dead civilians. A school is gone. A city has a burning river running through its streets. The waterway that moves 1/5 of the world's oil supply has gone silent. Who actually won here? Drop your answer below. The Hormuz standoff, the real oil price data, and what Congress was actually told about Mashar, that is coming next. Subscribe now so you are there when it drops. This story is not slowing down, and the next chapter is the one that changes the numbers you see at the pump. Do not look away.